Kusakabe is an overlooked sorcerer, and if I'm being honest, he almost perfectly fits the sensei character role that fans expected of Gojo Satoru. Half of you probably cocked your heads in confusion, so in this video I'll go over exactly what I mean by that, but first I want to talk a little bit about who Atsuya Kusakabe is. Kusakabe is a grade 1 sorcerer and teacher, but he's also basically the reader's self-insert into the story. He's a strong and capable sorcerer but doesn't possess a curse technique, and so, because of this, he seems to be very fearful for his life and takes the realistic approach in most cases. We're first introduced to him during the Shibuya incident arc, and when we meet him, he is trying everything he can to avoid altercations considering how big the scale of the incident is before Gojo gets captured. He's completely fine with letting the stronger guys handle the work, and he's kind of just here so that he doesn't get in trouble, but later once the news breaks that Gojo got sealed, Kusakabe goes into full-on survivor mode. While Panda is eager to find and help people as well as fight other curses that are roaming around Shibuya, Kusakabe is trying to take it as easy as possible, leading Panda away from the danger because he himself doesn't want to die. He's like the guy that hides in the bathroom at work as much as possible or calls out when he knows the district manager is coming to visit the store. Other than being fearful, we know he also has a little sister who hasn't been the same since her son died, and sometime after the Shibuya incident when Yaga is on the run and Panda is captured to use as bait for Yaga, Kusakabe releases Panda as a means of paying Yaga back because Yaga would later create a cursed corpse doll with the information from his nephew's soul in order to help his sister move on with the death of her son. He apologizes to Yaga and says that he thanks him for everything that he's done, and I think this is supposed to imply that Kusakabe also sold out Yaga in the end after he helped him with his sister, and it makes sense considering after the scene with Sukuna and Jogo's meteor, Kusakabe tells Panda himself that if the higher-ups decide to condemn Yuji to death, he will not take Yuji's side, so it seems like he's not willing to go against the higher-ups who then gave Yaga the death penalty. Kusakabe is probably the most realistic character in the JJK universe, and while this alone isn't enough to put him at that status above Gojo as a teacher, we do get to see a lot from him, and that's thanks to Gege fleshing his character out. Now I know I've called him cowardly and selfish, but now I'll talk about areas where he has shown himself to be impressive as both a fighter and an educator, which the latter is where most would say Gojo was lacking. As a fighter, you would be insane to call Kusakabe weak. Even though he doesn't have a curse technique and goes out of his way to avoid fights, he will fight if he must or feels like he has a chance at winning. His fighting style consists of Batso sword drawing and enhancing that with new shadow style Simple Domain. Kusakabe creates a space around him with the Simple Domain and can instantly attack when someone comes within range, or also use it to neutralize or weaken curse techniques. There are a few cases when he's used this and it was incredibly impressive. The first was when he encountered members of Geto's old group in Shibuya and used new shadow style to quickly cut down the fodder sorcerers they had with them. The next two cases are much more grand, and that would be when Kenjaku was like centimeters away from blasting Miwa with the full-powered Uzumaki, which, to put into context, during Volume 0, the real Geto went to use maximum Uzumaki against Yuta Okotsu, and Yuta knew he had to make a binding vow with Rika, giving up his future, his heart, and his body in order to have enough power to beat it. And in Shibuya, when Kenjaku fires it off, Kusakabe was somehow fast enough to squeeze into basically a paper-thin space to let off his Simple Domain and block this attack, saving Miwa's life in the process, which earns him praise from Kenjaku, who comments, "It's nice to fight someone with a little know-how." The other time we see Kusakabe's impressive feats in combat is in the most recent chapter, after Sukuna and Yuji exit Higuruma's domain. Sukuna immediately fires off Dismantle at Higuruma, but we see Kusakabe once again able to dash in front of this attack, which normally we wouldn't be crazy to assume would be much faster than him, and he blocks some of the cutting force from Dismantle. Afterwards, Sukuna also praises his opponents for improving their defenses. When you think about it, there are a lot of characters in JJK who are tough, but you never expect the cowardly sensei in the big trench coat with no curse technique to be the one jumping headfirst into these devastating attacks. Besides those cases, there's also the time where Mei says that Yuji is the only other person who was strong enough to work their way up to being a grade 1 sorcerer without a curse technique like Kusakabe, and in the back half of the Gojo vs Sukuna fight, Kusakabe raises his hand and asks who all has taken a punch from Gojo before. I'll take his raised hand as he himself also saying that he's felt the blue infused fist. That's all for combat experiences that we have seen from Kusakabe, but I know this video was supposed to be about Kusakabe's role as a teacher, and so now I'll talk about that. During the Gojo vs Sukuna battle, Kusakabe was a massively important character. He not only provided information to us as readers with his commentary, but also helped inform and refresh fighters on things that were taking place during the fight. At the start, when Gojo and Sukuna are battling, he goes into detail about how domain amplification works. Of course, some characters already sort of have an idea, but this is vital information for someone like Higuruma, who was helped by what Kusakabe says and believes he's beginning to understand that process. Shortly Shortly after that, it's mentioned that Sukuna's domain is an open barrier, which he previously believed to be impossible, but quickly came up with an example on the fly for how it works. He tells Miwa to throw him some water, which of course makes her throw a bottle of water at him, and he goes, "No. Not the bottle, just give me the water. I didn't ask for the bottle." It's a goofy example that doesn't make sense when you think about it literally, but it's similar to the previously believed impossibility of opening a domain with no barrier. Throughout the rest of the fight, Kusakabe chimes in and either gives details on things like how their domains would work together, or give them examples to help them understand things, or correct them when they're wrong. When Gojo whips out a simple domain, Yuji mentions he thought Gojo couldn't use that, to which Kusakabe replies, he just can't teach it because geniuses make terrible teachers and Gojo can't teach for shit. Shortly after, there's another instance where Gojo uses falling blossom emotion, another anti-domain technique that's only known to the big three families, and someone makes a comment asking why the hell does Kusakabe know about it then? At this point, I know many readers were likely annoyed when the scenes would continuously shift back and forth from the fight to the peanut gallery, but this type of information is important. Having characters like Yuta and Higuruma know things like falling blossom emotion exists, as well as how domain amplification and simple domains work in great detail, can only improve their chances at winning the battles to come. To add to that, he comments on Gojo changing the size of his domain and mentions how it's something Higuruma and Hikari are able to do naturally, so they might not even realize it's that big of a deal, but it's not normal. When Gojo and Sukuna both use their domains too many times, Kusakabe explains that the reason they take damage is because the brain is basically a black box that isn't easy to heal. Kusakabe stops Yuta from heading to the battlefield when it looks like Gojo is about to lose, because they have to keep in mind that Uraume is still around. I could probably go on forever talking about how Kusakabe's words have helped or may help in the future, but you pretty much get it at this point. Kusakabe was a key character during that fight, and with clarifying things that aren't easily understood, and he was heavily involved in the battle plan to send Takaba and Yuta to take down Kenjaku, as well as the next steps for taking down Sukuna, including the many possibilities that can come from using Higuruma's domain expansion. I don't want to leave out the fact that he's physically trained with the Yuji before all this, seemingly swapping bodies with Yuji in a way that has yet to be explained, but all in all, Kusakabe has been seen on screen doing more teaching than any other Jujutsu character in the teacher role has. It's a little sad to see him go unnoticed while people also bag on Gojo for being a bad teacher, and it's also funny to see Kusakabe go, "That's impossible," like 6 times, while also knowing things that like someone like him shouldn't probably know. Since he doesn't have a curse technique, he knows all about domain expansions, the black box, reverse curse techniques, domain amplification, falling blossom emotion. He knows so much for a guy who doesn't have a technique of his own. With that, I wonder what will happen in the raid against Sukuna now that it's begun. Do you think Kusakabe taught Higuruma simple domain off screen? Do you think the cowardly teacher will die here, or will he get to live out the rest of his days when Ryumen Sukuna is finally defeated? And do you agree with me in saying that Kusakabe is the teacher that people thought Gojo would be? Let me know all that in the comments below. I'll pick my favorite comment and share it as comments of the week in my community tab. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and sorry if I ran a little long. Thank you for watching.